If you live in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, or Massachusetts, or Maryland, you already know exactly what your home is worth right now. And you already know exactly what it costs you to keep it there every single year. Property taxes, state income tax, in some cases, a second layer of tax most people don't even realize until they see it on the return. But I just don't want to talk about money today. I want to talk about something bigger, what you're actually getting for that money year after year, and whether there's a place that gives you more of what actually matters for a lot less. I want to make a case for somewhere that gives you a real comprehensive alternative, not just cheaper, but genuinely comparable or better on things that actually matter: lifestyle, healthcare, and daily quality of life. Let's get into it. Quick thing before we dive in. If you're from the Northeast and thinking about this move, drop a comment or reach out using the link below. If you think this is useful, go ahead and hit subscribe now. Let's start with the number everyone actually cares about: the math, state by state. New York City residents can face a combined state and city income tax of up to 14.776%, the highest combined income tax rate in the entire country, even higher than California's well-known 13.3% top rate. And on top of the income tax, New York has its own estate tax with a notorious cliff. Estates that go slightly over the exemption threshold can get taxed on their entire value, not just the amount over the line. New Jersey doesn't have an income tax problem the way New York does, but it has the highest property tax burden in the entire country. The average New Jersey homeowner now pays over $10,000 a year in property taxes alone, and in counties like Bergen or Union, the median bill is over $10,000. And that's before income tax, before anything else, just to own the home. Connecticut's income tax tops out lower than New York on paper, but its residency test is actually stricter. You need to clear 3 conditions to be treated as a non-resident there, including spending no more than 30 days in the state, not 183. And Massachusetts uses the same core residency framework, the 183-day and permanent abode test, plus a millionaire's tax, surtax, that pushes the effective top combined rate to around 9% or higher for earners. And on top of that, the average Massachusetts property tax bill runs about $6,080 a year. In Boston, a $700,000 home carries a tax bill of roughly $8680 annually. Here's the Florida side of that comparison. The statewide effective property tax rate runs under 1%, well below the national average, and a typical bill is somewhere between $1,900 and $2,700 depending on the county. Here in Sarasota specifically, the median bill runs around $3,500. Compare that to New Jersey's $10,000 plus average or Boston's $8680 on a comparable home. And that gap isn't small. It's several $1,000s a year, every year for as long as you own the home. And in Maryland has a structural quirk most people don't know about until it's too late. You pay state income tax, which tops out at 6.5%, and then a mandatory county income tax on top of that, anywhere between 2.25 and 3.2, depending on which county you live in. In Montgomery County specifically, that combined to an effective rate of roughly 7 to 9%. There's also a 2% capital gain surtax on income above $350,000. To be fair, Maryland does fully exempt Social Security income from state tax, so it's not all one-directional, but very few people realize their county of residence is quietly adding a second income tax on top of the state tax. Now here's the other side. Florida has 0 state income tax, not a lower rate, 0. No county add-on, no estate tax, no capital gains surtax. If you're sitting on significant equity in a Northeast home, that equity doesn't just buy more house here, it stops being taxed the same way every single year for as long as you live here. And here's where I think the conversation usually goes wrong. People assume leaving the Northeast means giving up on the lifestyle, the coastline, the summer towns, the boutique restaurants, that specific feeling of a place that's genuinely beautiful for at least part of the year. It doesn't have to. The Hamptons, Montauk, the Long Island Sound, the Jersey Shore, Cape May, coastal Connecticut, Cape Cod, Nantucket, Chesapeake Bay, these are real special places. But for most people, they're seasonal, a few weeks or weekends a year, not a daily lifestyle. Sarasota and the surrounding Gulf Coast offers that same water, walkability, and boutique town feel, but as a year-round reality, not a seasonal escape you have to plan around. So here's a small example, but for some people it genuinely matters. Fishing. Up north it's seasonal. You're planning around ice out or a short window before the weather turns again. Here you can fish 365 days a year. That might sound minor, but if fishing is actually part of your life, it's not just something you do a few weekends in the summer. That difference is real. Golf is the same story. Northeast courses close for the winter, frost delays, snow, months where the clubs just sit in the garage. Here you're playing year-round. And it's not just golf and fishing. Gardening is the same story. Up north, the growing season ends at the first frost. And for half the year, your garden is just dirt. Here you're growing flowers and vegetables 365 days a year. Even something as simple as the beach follows the same pattern. Up north, it's a good summer thing, a few months, and then when it's over, it's over. Here, you can be at the beach in January just as easily as July. And you're not settling for just any beach either. Siesta Key was just named the #1 beach in the entire United States by U.S. News and World Report for its short drive from here alongside Lido Beach, Longboat Key, and Anna Maria Island, all within close proximity. If golf, fishing, gardening, or the beach or anything outdoors is part of how you actually want to spend your time, not just something you do a few months a year, it's not a small lifestyle difference. It's the difference between a hobby and a way of life. And this area isn't a hidden secret standing in for the real thing. Lakewood Ranch has been ranked the #1 or #2 top-selling master plan community in the entire country for 8 consecutive years, based on independent industry data. People are already voting with their equity to move here. The same national retail brands, restaurant groups, and hotel names you already know from the Northeast are represented here too. You're not trading familiarity for the unknown. You're getting the same standards in a place that costs a fraction as much to actually live in without the seasonal shutdown every winter. Now let's talk about the one thing that quietly matters more than any of this as you get older: healthcare. The Northeast has genuinely excellent hospital systems. Johns Hopkins, NYU Langone, Yale New Haven, Mass General, and Brigham and Women's in Boston. And others are real, well-earned reasons people hesitate to leave. Healthcare access isn't a lifestyle preference, it's a practical concern, and it should be treated as one. Here's the honest comparison, not a sales pitch. Sarasota Memorial Hospital is the only hospital in Florida to earn a perfect 5-star rating for the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services every year since that rating system began in 2016. It's also been named to Newsweek's World's Best Hospital list, a global ranking. And Lakewood Ranch Medical Center itself was named the 2026 top hospital in Florida by Forbes, rated high-performing specialty for heart attacks, hip fractures, knee replacements, and maternity. This isn't a downgrade in healthcare access. On the data, it's comparable, and there's actually an emergency room physically located in Lakewood Ranch itself, not a long drive away in the event of an emergency. And I want to say something directly. As people get older, safety concerns just don't create fear. They shrink your actual physical world. Fewer walks at certain times, fewer errands alone, less spontaneity. Your radius gets smaller without you necessarily noticing it happening. And this isn't a knock on a specific city or state. It's true of aging in almost any dense, high-traffic, expensive metro area, whether that's New York, northern New Jersey, Boston, or the DC suburbs of Maryland. But it's worth naming directly because a bigger, more open, easier daily life is generally part of what people are looking for as they think about their next chapter. I also want to touch on one or two things directly because I think avoiding them would be dishonest, and I also want to be fair about what the data actually shows, not just telling you what you want to hear. On homelessness, the numbers are stark. New York currently has the highest per capita homelessness rate in the entire country, driven in significant part by the documented spike tied to the migrant shelter crisis in New York City. Florida, meantime, is one of the only 4 states in the country where the homelessness rate is actually falling. On crime, I want to be honest rather than one-sided. Recent data shows Florida's violent crime rate trending down, and most recently, lower than in New York. I'm also not going to tell you the whole Northeast is more dangerous, because it isn't. New Jersey, Connecticut, and Massachusetts are all consistently ranked among the safest states in the entire country, with New England as a region dominating national safety rankings. So if safety specifically is a concern, it's a real point for New York, but not a fair claim to make about New Jersey and Connecticut and Massachusetts. And here's something worth knowing if you're on the fence. There's a ballot measure here in Florida this November, Amendment 3. That would expand the homestead property tax exemption significantly. It's not guaranteed, it still needs voter approval, but it's a real example of the direction policy is heading here, toward reducing the tax burden on residents, not raising it. And that's worth factoring in long-term for policy direction if it matters, your decision along with everything else we've covered. If you're deeply rooted where you are, generational ties, a business, family nearby that you see every week, this video isn't trying to talk you out of that. Those are real, legitimate reasons to stay, and no tax comparison or weather comparison changes them. But if you're carrying a heavy tax burden, dealing with winters that are getting harder every year, or just quietly wondering what else is out there, this is genuinely worth a serious look. Not a lateral move, but for a lot of people, an upgrade. If you're from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, or Maryland, and you've ever wondered what your equity actually converts to here, not in theory, but in real numbers for your specific situation, that's exactly the kind of conversation I have regularly. And beyond the numbers, I generally like to show you the Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch area in person, so you can see for yourself whether it's the right move for you, not just take my word for it. Drop a comment or reach out using the link below. And if you want a full picture beyond this one video, head to georgelatos.com/guides for free guides on relocating here, 55 plus communities, golf communities, every topic all in one place. And if this was useful, hit subscribe. I cover real financial and lifestyle side of relocating here, not just the postcard version.